Here's the start of your demo. Okay, so I just want to tell you, well, first of all, in about a minute, I hope I'm going to just kind of knock your socks off with a big change in my demo, in my painting. And let me just preface this whole thing by saying that sometimes I get into a painting and realize that I want to make a 180-degree turn to the left or the right. I want to make a big change, and I don't let that scare me. In this case, with this painting, I'm super excited. And I hope that you will appreciate. Now, you do not have to make this change along with me, of course, but I hope that you will find this whole notion and this whole process interesting. I find it fascinating, and certainly when it happens, when I'm in a painting and it happens, I think it's fascinating. And I think that as a moment of teaching, it's fascinating, and I hope you will appreciate it. Okay, have I gotten your attention?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So here is Pokemon Girl. And I'm just gonna kind of review. So I made my value study, as I always do, and my drawing, and put on some masking fluid. And then this is where I was last week when, actually at the end of class, I did not have any paint on the ground or the floor, whatever she's sitting upon. I did that after class. I told you I would. I'm pretty sure I told you that I would, and I did. Aside from that, everything else is it's just purely what I did in class, using 3 primary colors, applied fairly lightly and fluidly. Okay, so this is precisely what you saw last week. All right, so here's what I started thinking. I do have to tell you that from the very beginning, you know, I wasn't thrilled with this wall. I thought it's just too perfect. It's too perfect and boring. And then I found this wall in Savannah, Georgia, that was also bricks. And I think that it's much more interesting. And so I decided to put that in behind the girl. And I drew in a portion of the windows. So where is the girl? All right, so here's the drawing. So I put in a portion of the window, and I do want to mention that when I put the window in, I place it very carefully, and I'm not sure that I spoke at great length last week, but I did place it very carefully so that the window is not centered from left to right in my painting. It's not, there isn't too much, I don't think there's too much of a feeling of it being centered behind the girl. I cropped the top of the window out of the painting. I did not feel the need to show the entire window. I thought it was more interesting cropping it out of the painting. So, you know, I thought pretty carefully about where I was going to put the window, but I got to tell you, I was never entirely happy about that window in the first place. I'm just not sure I like it or want it to be in my painting. So I started thinking, well, if I take the window out of my painting, then I'm kind of back at square one with this big boring wall like there was behind the girl in the Colosseum, and I don't want that. So I started thinking, well, what if something like this was behind the girl?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Excuse me, I have a barking dog who needs to be let out. Okay, so I just started thinking about, well, it could be really interesting to get some great looking graffiti on the wall behind her.
Yep.
And hold on a second, I don't see, oh, Okay, we are recording. Okay, never mind. Um, I looked through my own photos, and I've got a few photos with graffiti in them, but not a lot. So I went online and I Googled. Here's what I Googled, and I think it's helpful to know how to do that. You do this, I just Googled graffiti on brick walls, and like you get like 1,000 photos. And then I took screenshots. So this is a screenshot. For anybody who has never taken a screenshot, it's really useful to learn how to do that. You can take a screenshot on, I believe, on pretty much any device. Different devices work differently. If you've never done it, I also recommend that you Google how to take a screenshot. It's real easy. And what it does basically is your computer takes a photograph of whatever is on your screen. And then you can use that photograph. So here's a screenshot from one of those Googled pictures of graffiti on a brick wall. Here's another one. Here's another one. Now, I think that you all know by now that I have a very strict belief that I must only use my own photographs. I do not use certainly not published photographs, photographs taken by anybody else, photographs that might have any kind of a copyright attached to them, where the copyright does not belong to me. However, I feel that looking at screenshots like this of other people's photographs of graffiti is perfectly fine because I'm not going to copy them. I'm using these photographs to give me ideas, just sort of generic ideas about graffiti. I think that graffiti can, now granted, if somebody came along with a can of spray paint and spray painted something on the side of my house, I would not be happy at all. But looking at them this way, I think some graffiti can be very interesting, certainly colorful. It's curious. I can rarely read it. I don't have a clue what these people are writing. Can you read any of this? I don't know what they're writing. But it's really interesting. So guess what, everybody? The window in my painting is about to disappear.
Yeah.
And graffiti is going to appear instead. Now, I did some work on my painting over the weekend to move it forward for you. So I want to show you now what I did. So the first thing I did is I took my value study. This is the same value study, made the window disappear, and then I just erased some squiggle lines to suggest graffiti. Okay, so it's the same value study. I just took the pencil and just went right over the window, and I smudged it around with my finger, made it disappear. And so here's my new value study, just to kind of convince myself, yep, I like this idea. All right. So then I went to my painting and I erased the heck out of it. And you can see what I did. Here is my actual sort of nasty old eraser. That's the eraser I used. And I just erased really, really hard all over the whole window. This is just a close-up of it. And you can see that some of the pencil lines are still there vaguely, but not real heavy. Okay, step number one. Step number two, I put clean water all over the whole background from here, the ground level, all the way around the girl, all the way around to the ground level, and all the way up to the top. And then using the same three colors, just put on more color, a little bit darker, all over the place. And then I dropped some salt on. If I pull in closer, look, can you see the window at all? It's gone. It's gone. Those faint lines that were here are gone by the time I get just sort of a moderately heavy, I wouldn't even use the word heavy, let's just say a moderate glaze. That's all it takes. to make those lines disappear. There's really no telling that there ever were lines from the window. Can you see the salt? This is the
Yep.
salt. So I dropped some salt in, and in fact, I have a close-up. So here's the salt again. So when when I look at it here, it looks like some kind of a picture of some kind of a nasty skin disease. This is really very unappealing looking. But let me just remind you that if you're going to drop salt into onto wet paper, make sure that the paper still is shiny. Once the shine's gone off the paper, the salt's going to do nothing. It's just going to sit there. If the paper is too wet, too shiny, then the salt um, just kind of melts and does nothing. Here's the final result. So this is the paper is dry now. The salt has been flicked off. I'm always very careful to remove every grain of salt before I resume painting. And so the salt has made all these interesting marks. Here, where the marks are smaller, the paper was a little drier. Here, where the marks are big and bloomy, the paper was wetter. So you can see the differences. The surface, in other words, was not equally wet everywhere when I dropped the salt on. I also dropped it on over the course of 2 or 3 minutes as the paper was drying a little bit. So I got different kinds of marks from the salt. Why did I even put the salt on? I put the salt on because I just wanted to add to the texture, the roughness, the age, the scruffiness of this wall. And I knew the salt would help me do that. Okay, so there we go. So this is where, oh no, oh, okay, so I did one more thing. Do you see the graffiti that's starting to emerge? This is masking fluid now. So looking at my various pictures, screenshots, just to get an idea of the kind of calligraphy, this graffiti, you know, when people are writing words on walls, it's their own style of calligraphy. So I was just trying to get an idea of some of this calligraphy. I took a small-ish brush with masking fluid and just drew on some stuff. Strange word-like markings. I've got one that's coming off the top here, somebody's graffiti. I've got graffiti here that's coming behind the girl's arm. Here there's a little bit that's coming behind her head. Okay, y'all, you see that? And the graffiti looks gray now because I'm using my PBO, which is grayish. I'm going to glaze darker on the wall. So eventually the wall's going to be darker and the graffiti is going to emerge as lighter for the most part. Okay, everybody good with that? The other thing I want to mention is that, actually, I think I've got a close-up. I do. So here's another close-up of some of the graffiti on the wall. I also put graffiti on the words Harry Potter. If you look at the photo of the girl holding the book, the title of the book, I don't know, it's Harry Potter and I don't know, The Sorcerer's Apprentice. What are the names of those books? The Sorcerer's Apprentice is not Harry Potter, but The Sorcerer's Stone. Is it called The Sorcerer's Stone? Anyhow, the words Harry Potter are lighter than most of the cover of the book. And so using a really tiny Frisket brush, I put some Frisket over the words Harry Potter. I did not do that initially because I wanted to get some color down first. And so now there's, so this yellowish color that's from what I did last week will be captured under the words Harry Potter. And this is where I am right now with